Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to wait for a few more people. We got quite a few people signed up. We see they're logging in right now. It's good to see some summer weather here in New England here. Cranked on the AC yesterday. Beach
Dave,
was packed.
Dave, I also just wanted to say that everybody obviously is on mute. We do have a Q&A tab that folks can enter any questions as we go through. And we may try to do a poll as well, but I just wanted to say that and make sure that everyone was aware of that. And if you have any questions, feel free to start posting them before, during, and after.
So one thing we here at PCG is consistently trying to have various content subject matter that we feel is very important for the businesses. And we've done things in the past on security, on business continuity. Our upcoming topics here over the next few months, we're really seeing, as all of us, is about artificial intelligence. It's all through the news. It's you're seeing all the major shows, 60 Minutes, CNN. It's everywhere. And the one thing that we've noticed with artificial intelligence, especially in the security world, is how the actors are using it against us, but also we as businesses, how we need to defend. So our topic today is we feel it's perfect timing to talk about artificial intelligence. So we have some great content here. It's about probably 35 minutes of content. I'll present our speakers. We'll also be giving some live demo of how the product works, and then we'll be doing some Q&A. So we like to be interactive. So again, if you have any questions, please pose that and we'll do the best we can. So my name is Dave Hodgson. I'm the CEO and founder of here at PCGIT. We were founded in 1996 and have been a Microsoft partner ever since we were born. And we're happy today to have two fantastic speakers that are way more smarter than me on AI to join us. So we have Patrick Nichols from PCG. He's one of our senior engineers, and he's going to help drive the content. But we also have a special speaker joining us today, Walker Rowe, who is one of our primary vendors through Pax8, but he's the Microsoft specialist that actually is going to really help us do a deep dive here into artificial intelligence. So again, we thank everyone for attending. We want to get through the content and hopefully we'll be a little more savvy aware on what artificial intelligence is. So welcome, Walker and Patrick.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having us here.
Morning, guys. To give you guys a little background about myself, I'm a level 3 engineer here at PCG, and I've got several Microsoft certifications, and I'm kind of the lead here when it comes to learning more about the Copilot licensing and how the AI models are going to affect our work, but also the productivity of our clients and users in the future.
Yeah, and just a quick introduction on myself. Also hold many certifications, so ditto on that. But I come from the Pax8 side, so we're at the distribution level. And my focus is on pre-sales, Microsoft support, education enablement, and a pleasure to be here with the PCG team.
Where we see you at today, Walker? Where are you located?
Denver, Colorado. So yeah,
the
Denver,
Mile High
Colorado.
City. All right.
Mile High City. So one of the things that we wanted to just jump right into and call out is the fact that, like Dave was saying on the introduction of today's call, Copilot and AI in general has been all over headlines. And part of the reason for that is because it's an industry disruptor. And the way that we see it is as a tool for productivity and efficiency, we haven't seen something so ready out of the box before since the internet really hit widespread adoption. And what we're seeing now with the Microsoft 365 Copilot is effectively a bridging of the gap between the average person that performs a job, so somebody who's sitting in a seat and has roles and responsibilities and kind of a to-do list throughout the day, and the technology that they're interfacing with. And so one of the biggest things that has been a barrier for most people is the delta between the knowledge to use a product or tool very effectively and efficiently and the capabilities of that product and tool. Good case in point here would be Microsoft Excel. A lot of people use it, interface with it, but probably out of the attendees that we have here today, maybe a handful are going to be power users and very proficient with all of the different capabilities of it, right? The whole core concept, and I'll start this at the beginning of the meeting and say, what is my elevator pitch around the Copilot product? Fundamentally, what it is it's an executive AI assistant that takes the average end user, anybody, and makes them proficient and incredibly efficient with any of the Microsoft or other services that they're interfacing with on a day-to-day basis. So, we see some large level market trends. Industries are changing rapidly. We see that the drivers, so what are the mechanisms for economic growth, are different today than they were before. There's more of a focus on efficiency and being able to do things in a timely and expedient and accurate manner. And we think that technology is at an inflection point. So I use the example here of the internet and the disruptor that presented in business day-to-day operations. And with the launch of the Copilot product and other AI tools, we're going to focus on Copilot for a couple of reasons, focusing on data security and governance. But we think that that's going to be a huge disruptor, and where you kind of go from here is going to determine how effectively you're able to adopt and use that tool to your benefit. So here's what we've seen in terms of the timeline of generative AI. You could see that for a lot of people, this has been something that's sitting in the background and not maybe a main focus. Why should I pay attention to it? Why is it important to me? There are a couple of pioneers, obviously, who've been pushing the technology forward, but now we're finally at the point where we've seen ChatGPT hit the market and hit 100 million user adoption in 3 months. And you can see with like these other technology disruptors that have happened over the past couple of examples, the internet took 7 years, Facebook 4.5 years to hit 100 million, mobile phones took a very long time. So you can see that the growth and the adoption rate of this product and the AI technology in general has been exponentially higher than anything we've seen before. So now that people are using it, we talk about the impact of it. So here's a little graphic to show you global GDP, technological revolution. So there's a couple points in times that are delineated and called out here. But again, on the far right, you can see the impact that AI has had. All right, so some important early information on Microsoft 365 Copilot. What we're seeing is that Copilot usage across internal departments, so sales, IT, HR, engineering, marketing. These are some respondent questionnaires that we want to use to kind of punctuate what the Copilot product is able to bring to market. And the key differentiators between this product and some of the other ones that have hit the market is that it provides an immense amount of value right out of the box. The level of customization and tweaking and modification that you would have to do to some of the other iterations of generative AI products is not present with the Copilot product. And so what we're seeing is people are able to just get it out of the box and immediately start using it. And so here's some examples that you guys can read through as we're talking through this slide. But the main takeaway here is that most people are finding that this is a much more efficient way for them to spend their days. And as far as a tool to add into their operations, it presents much more value than anything that they've seen previously.
Dave, how much of your tasks do you think you could wipe off your list of to-dos with some of these AI tools?
I just hired my new AI assistant yesterday, so my goal is to I think about everything, Patrick, I do in search, Word, Excel, Teams, our meetings, how many Teams meetings you do, how many things you do in pivot tables, how many products we use, but I'm probably wasting 2 to 3 hours today, a day that, now that we hear PCG is starting to adopt this and we're talking about it, is that I'm just, even though I'm an old dog right here, I'm really looking forward to how this can help automate things for me, Patrick.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the kind of the idea. And as we're going through this, I hope everybody starts to think about ways to apply this to their day-to-day operations. But a couple important things to pull out of this slide specifically. 87% of people agree that it makes them more productive. And there's also an ability to prioritize and focus on what we'd classify as satisfying work. So to understand that, we kind of have an A and a B, right? So satisfying work are things that you want to get done that are important to drive the business forward. And then what we would call unsatisfying work are things that are just menial tasks that need to be completed as part of your daily checklist. So Dave brought up a really good example of comparisons, summarizations, maybe formatting a chunk of information in an Excel workbook, let's say, and then turning that into an email to send off to somebody internally at your team who needs a report on those financials. That right there, just as a quick kind of an aside example, if you were to do that yourself and you're setting up filters and tables and graphics and understanding the data itself to a point where you could then write up something about it, to describe it, to explain it to somebody else on your team, or maybe an investor or stakeholder, you can do that within the Copilot interface and it'll take you significantly less time. Again, the idea here is to allow you to focus on satisfying work, get things done that are important to you. The other thing that we're going to talk a little bit about as we continue to move through the slide deck is the meeting piece. So there is a component to Microsoft Teams that allows you to plug in the Copilot product and also Teams Premium as a combination to effectively make it so that no matter what meetings you miss, you're able to bring yourself up to speed with the recap functionality and understand exactly what was said by who and what the takeaway action items are going to be from that. So the time saving piece also at the bottom, just keep that number in mind because it is something relevant to the overall conversation of, what is this product going to do for us and why should we pay attention to it?
Walker, when you mentioned the Teams thing, I believe that's made available on the newer record and transcribe features in Microsoft Teams.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so if you, the audience, have any questions about this, PCG is well versed and able to help you with it. But I'll just give you kind of like an anecdotal aside on that. My function at Pax8 is to primarily respond to emails and get on meetings like the one that we're having here today. And so it's important for me to be quick because a lot of times my calendar ends up back to back. And maybe that resonates with some other people on the call here today. But if you have back-to-back meetings like that and you need to take basically a data dump from everything you talked about in that meeting and put it somewhere like a Salesforce or whatever CRM system you guys might be using so that you can reference it later. The problem that most people run into, and I'm guilty of this myself, is that I usually take 1 or 2 or 3 maximum takeaways from any given meeting. And if you sit down for an hour with a bunch of people that have different initiatives and different perspectives, we're running a couple things in tandem or parallel, the pitfall here is that you start forgetting pieces of important information and let it fall to the wayside. And that can manifest itself as deals lost, follow-ups that weren't followed up with. So people are upset with the kind of the experience. Oh, well, Walker said that he was going to do this, but then I never got anything from him, right? So the concept here is if you plug in Copilot to your Microsoft Teams recordings, it'll give you all of those key takeaways and information, and it's readily available. And it's also in a template that you can just copy and paste it wherever you'd like to drop that data. So it's easy to facilitate the move from the meeting itself to a data repository of your choice. So the Copilot product we're going to focus on at the beginning here, and we'll transition into the Copilot for Microsoft 365. So I'll just give a quick breakdown. You all might have seen that there are multiple Copilot products. So I'll list a couple off. You've got Copilot, formerly Bing Chat Enterprise. We call it Copilot. You got Copilot for Microsoft 365, Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Security, just to name a few. The ones that we're going to focus on here today is the free version that most of you on the meeting here should have access to. And there's a couple different ways to access that, so we'll get to that later in the presentation. But then the Copilot for Microsoft 365 product is the same architecture and the same interface as the free version of Copilot. But the difference between the two is where the data is coming from. So on Copilot, the free version, it's pulling from the web at large. And then the Copilot for Microsoft 365 is what brings it back specific to company data and documents. So you might use the Copilot product to ask for things like summaries, analyses, tables, content, images. And as we continue to run through these, I'll try to give you a quick point on each of these. So summaries, maybe you're reading a large KB article about Microsoft 365 Defender for Endpoint, just something that I do, and you want just the important information. You could ask Copilot to summarize that web page for you. Maybe you want to do an analysis or a comparison. Maybe we're comparing hardware purchases. We're looking at Dell computers versus Lenovo computers, and we would like an analysis of the pros and cons of each. Tables, you could set it up for easier data formatting. Maybe you want to gain some actionable insights from a set of data that you have in an Excel file, but you feel like it's difficult to kind of understand where should I even start. Copilot's going to give you a couple of suggestions and get the ball rolling for you. And then if you're proficient with your use of prompting, you could probably glean all of the information that's going to be relevant from you directly from the Excel application. You never have to load it into Power BI or any other data visualization software. And so that's kind of a game changer in and of itself. Content, to generate new content. So this is a pretty exciting use of the Microsoft 365 Copilot product. But I'll use this as an example again. Let's say you have some sort of an email that comes through from somebody, like Dave sends me a synopsis of what we're looking to cover on our next conversation. And I would like to take that and turn it into an agenda, guidelines for the conversation, right? With Copilot, you can literally feed it in, tell it exactly what you're looking to get out of it, which is take this information and turn it into an agenda. And it will do it almost instantaneously for you. And then image creation, this last one over here. These are for images that exist in your imagination, but don't exist in reality. And so bridging the gap between conceptual ideation of images and the tangible result, which traditionally has to go through a graphic designer or similar to actually bring it to life. This technology has the ability for you to generate any image that you can think of. And really the sky's the limit in terms of the content there. But what I really want to focus here on is that Copilot is not the same as Bing or Google or any of these other search engines, right? You know, you think about this very traditionally. I think it's important to understand, like as a basic concept, when you have a traditional search engine, it all works off of keywords. And then, you know, leaving everything else aside on like search engine optimization and all of these things that can bring results towards the top, fundamentally what it's looking at is how many keywords do the results satisfy, and then prioritizing the results based on that. Copilot, however, works on an entirely different architectural model. And what it focuses on doing is giving you answers in a way that is formatted like somebody else on your team would provide to you. And that's why I call it an executive AI assistant, because instead of just saying, here's some helpful links or pages, and then you have to sit down and sort through the information, right? I mean, I might search for that exact same example, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and I'll get a couple of Microsoft Learn articles at the top and maybe a couple of third parties, maybe CRN did an article or something like that. But I got to dig through and parse through all of that information to find what's relevant for what I specifically want to know, which as an example could be, what do I need to understand as the key differences between Defender for Business Endpoint and Defender for Endpoint Plan 2? Yeah, just as an example, right? If I punch that into Copilot, it's going to very quickly give me that information. It's going to tell me where the key differences are, and it's going to write it up in whatever format I determine is going to be the most useful for me. So there's a couple other products out there, and we're actually seeing Microsoft reference the architecture that they use to build the Copilot product, ChatGPT-4. And I think that is probably something that most people have at least heard of on the meeting here today. And then DALL-E is what they use for images. But the ChatGPT-4 model has a key difference between Copilot and ChatGPT, and that is corporate data governance and data security. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's the model that they're using. They're very transparent about the sources. So if you were to use that same example where I'm trying to gain some information or some actionable insights about the Defender for Endpoint product, it's going to give me all of the sources that it referenced right at the bottom, and I can click directly into them and see where that information is coming from. If I want to omit or include certain sources, I can specify that as well through the interface. So it's really helpful to know where that information is coming from. There's no knowledge cutoff, meaning that as soon as things are available on the internet, they are available to you and the Copilot product at large. And the commercial data protection is probably the biggest thing. So Copilot does not use prompts or answers to train the model, meaning that your information as it gets out there is not going to be saved and potentially leaked. You know, you guys think about what happened with Patrick and I were talking about this, the Google Bard leak that happened back in 2023.
Yes.
Where a bunch of things that were fed into it were just leaked to the public in general. And so the idea here with the Copilot product is to say this is the Microsoft safe and certified way to use generative AI in a way that's not going to introduce the possibility of compromising company data or sensitive information.
Yeah, and Walker, so Mark in the chat is asking where the content's saved. So from what I understand, if you're running the kind of a free version of Copilot on built into Windows 11,
Right.
like if you ask it to generate say an image or something like that, that would be saved locally on your computer, correct? And then if you're using like a 365 enabled version of Copilot, it's going to utilize, saving content into your OneDrive or SharePoint.
Yeah, if it generates content, yes.
Yeah.
And usually what happens is, right, you have to specify that.
Yeah.
So if you wanted Copilot, for example, to save it as a file, you would say, please generate this as a Word document, and then it will be saved exactly to your either local device or to your OneDrive SharePoint. Generally speaking, there is no saving to local. And this is actually, so you could set it up to do that, but out of the box, what it requires is the back end is for the data and the information to be stored in what's called Dataverse. So Dataverse is kind of a catch-all term for anything that's Microsoft Common Data Service language that's stored in SharePoint, OneDrive, in the cloud that's hosted by Microsoft. And in order for Microsoft Copilot to reference any file or document, it has to have a presence there. And so the short answer is no, it doesn't save it locally. The longer answer is yes, you could make it work that way, but you would have to get in there and customize it to do so yourself. And basically what that would result in would be first it saves in SharePoint or OneDrive, then it makes a copy locally to your device, right? So you'd have to set up that policy yourself. Fundamentally, what it does is either generates content in the sense that it's a document, so it's one of the applications, so an Excel file, a Word document, a PowerPoint presentation. The image creation and any of the responses that you're going to get directly from Copilot are only saved in the session that you have open. And so it is your responsibility to copy that and save it somewhere else. So it doesn't inherently like make copies or save all of your responses or things that you generate unless you specify that. I hope that's a good answer for that question.
Yeah, that covers it. And we got another question from Randy asking if the kind of engine behind Copilot has been updated to the recently released GPT 4.0 version versus the previous
No,
GPT 4 or GPT 3.5.
Yeah. No, I don't believe so. I'm pretty sure what Microsoft has done on the Copilot product is lag behind a little bit anything that's in like beta testing or preview. And I haven't heard that the new version of ChatGPT 4 is live in the Copilot interface. So my assumption is no.
And that it's worth noting, though, that we've seen new Copilot features be released
Absolutely.
kind of every quarter, adding new features to and adding it to new existing applications, things like that.
Yeah, they continue to push out updates to the Copilot interface and the product itself. The underpinning architecture, usually what Microsoft does with stuff like this is they purchase it and then they use it for their version, right? So that's kind of what happened here. And the releases of the production Copilot product generally lag behind whatever's happening kind of cutting edge in the marketplace. But for the features and the actual productivity side of the house, so not necessarily like how fast is it or the architecture specific functionalities of the Copilot product, but more so to Patrick's point, how you're going to use it in your day-to-day operations. So integrations, feature functionalities, they are continually pushing out updates around that. So I said we were going to talk a little bit more about data protection, and here's kind of 3 quick hitting points on that. So you need to be signed in with your work account. Microsoft does give you a visual representation of this. Whenever you're interfacing with the product, you're going to have a green Copilot protected badge. This is signifying that you're signed in, and once you're signed in, that's when all the commercial data protection and governance comes into play. So if you were to sign into, let's say the Edge browser on a personal device that has a Microsoft Home subscription without any sort of credentials. Maybe use Google or something like that, just to set the stage here. If you go in and interface with the Copilot product, it will work for you if you have the right licensing from the Microsoft side of the house. But if you're not signed in with your work account, it's not going to apply the data protection, data governance. And so generally speaking, this is just a move from Microsoft to make it fit better into the segment of use for business, as opposed to personal use or just kind of like a funny thing that you keep on the side, right? This is a legitimate business applicable generative AI product. And the data loss prevention protections are integrated into the Copilot interface, especially when you're using one of the services that Microsoft specifies. It doesn't matter how you access it, so long as you're signed in with your work account. So that's the key takeaway there. The other thing to keep in mind here is that any of the information, the data, the responses, the prompts, is not going to be viewed by a human being at Microsoft. So there are some large analytics that they look at. So how long did Copilot take to respond to this? How many times have prompts been put in? Are we doing mostly image creation? Are we doing mostly this, that, and the other? So it takes some high level metrics and rolls those up. But as far as the actual content that you fed into it and that it gave back to you, nobody is ever going to look at that. And it's also encrypted end to end. And then everything is discarded. So that was a kind of a tie into the question we had earlier. What happens to it after I generate it? Is it just basically adding files or documents to my desktop? No, unless it generates an actual, is that a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, or a PowerPoint presentation or something tangible like that, that's going to have a save to the SharePoint or OneDrive, it is discarded once you leave the session or it times out. And so there's a little call out here. Make sure that you save whatever you get out of the Copilot product before you exit out of it, because it will not be there when you come back to it.
Dave, did you have any, I know you've gone through plenty of compliance things in terms of data privacy in general and compliance policies for some of our clients with their insurance companies for cyber insurance. Do you see Copilot for Microsoft 365 being something that just fits in as long as you've got security policies in place? It's not going to compromise any of those cyber insurance policies, correct?
Correct. I think the big part, as Walker was saying there, Patrick, was the governance, and the key is signing in through your Microsoft account. And whether you're financial, CPA, medical, if you're doing any form of work like that, you want to make sure you're following your compliance boundaries. But the key thing, Walker, is logging into that account. So even if I'm at home and I have my iPad or phone and you're looking for certain stuff, it's key at that point, Walker, to be logging into your account if you're dealing with any compliance. Would you concur?
Exactly right. And general rule of thumb here, if you're dealing with company information, sign in with your company provided work credentials. And from the Microsoft side of the house, you'll be protected. It's a little, we can even go a little bit more into this. And I will talk a little bit about kind of the ancillary and auxiliary aspects of Copilot implementations. But even just in that example, if you're using a personal device at home and you're accessing company information, you want to have Entra ID in place. You want to have Intune for mobile device management to quarantine and segment company data on personal devices, right? And Copilot kind of fits into this larger kind of security landscape. We think about what Microsoft 365 as a productivity tool does for us. There's kind of an outside consideration for all of the security products that Microsoft also has brought to market. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I do want to just kind of plant the seed to say that Copilot is one of those things where if you're going to set it loose in an organization, there's the phased approach here in terms of you can use this Copilot for Microsoft or Bing Chat Enterprise, Copilot product. As long as you're signed in with your work credentials, you're totally good to go. And there's really no considerations above and beyond that, right? As soon as we start getting into the Copilot for Microsoft 365 product, which is where the real productivity gains come into play, because there's only so much that we do online, we're also working out of the applications on a day-to-day basis. So as soon as we start moving into this kind of mind shift from the web version of Copilot to the Microsoft 365 tenant version of Copilot, we need to be thinking about things like, how is our data architected? So do we have like an easy kind of way to understand which files are updated? You know, if we have financial statements, let's say, that are just sitting in a SharePoint site that are from every single quarter going back 20 years. And in that example, we want to use the Copilot for Microsoft 365 interface to get us a financial statement summary for Q4. And if we don't have like naming conventions that are in place for those documents, you're going to have like Q4 20 different times if we go back 20 years, right? And so understanding how to set it up in a way that Copilot's going to be maximizing its efficiency potential is part of the conversation here, because what can happen is if we just have information that's all over the place and it's unstructured data, and we start using the Copilot product, we're going to run into a situation where we have to be very, very specific to get a specific document or file reference that we want to bring forward for analysis or for use, and it's going to be a bit of a mess. The other side of it too is, what are we doing to actually protect the data that exists within the Microsoft 365 cloud environment? And I think that there's kind of this this traditional methodology of thinking about your business entity as a castle, and you have the moat around it to protect anything from getting in. And the moat is all hardware focused. It's on-prem oriented, right? So we think about firewalls and switches. These are very important things to have on a network, but the Copilot product sits on top of Microsoft Dataverse, and Microsoft Dataverse is Microsoft servers. And so there's inherently this kind of gap between Microsoft, the data leaving Microsoft, if you think about it as kind of a physical item, right? Even though it's not, it leaves Microsoft and then it comes over to your customer, to your environment, right? And then you're either feeding information back to Microsoft or you're disseminating that out to other people. And so what I'm trying to get at here is there are a lot of situations in day-to-day operations that we may not be thinking about where information is leaving your secured castle, it's going over the moat, and then it's traveling out to other places. And so whenever we're using a product like Microsoft Copilot, which has access to company data, we want to make sure that as many data protections and security policies and settings are in play as possible. And really, we focus on the easy stuff, right? So identity management, conditional access, data loss prevention, so sensitivity labels and tags, and security groups. And so this is one of the things that I would encourage anybody who understands kind of the landscape of technology and the difference between cloud and on-prem. Reach out to your PCG IT team and have a little bit of a deeper conversation, if you haven't already, about data security and data hygiene, because it's a big part of how you're going to maximize the efficiency of the Copilot product.
Walker, one thing when you brought up earlier about the whole home access, and that'll be because we have an upcoming session, our next one through Microsoft is going to be on the Microsoft 365 Premium. When you mentioned the Entra, the device management. So in today's world where we want to be mobile, nimble, work anywhere, vacation, home, it's imperative. And on our next session, we'll be doing a deep dive on that and how to tie it back to Copilot.
Yes, and so anybody on this should go to that because it's very relevant to the conversation.
And just to note that there's so much to learn on this. We're doing another session with similar content on Copilot again, because there's a lot to cover with Copilot within an hour. So we're going to try to, we don't want to go too fast, stay on target, and whatever we miss, we'll pick up on our next session.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anybody following along with us today, there's 5 different ways to get into the Copilot. And this again is the Copilot, formerly Bing Chat Enterprise. Really the easiest one that I typically interface with is directly in the Edge browser or on the Windows operating system. So if you're running, like Patrick said, even Windows 10, if you have the newest version of it, should have the Copilot ribbon at the bottom. Windows 11 for sure. You can access it there. You can go directly into the Edge browser. There's a couple different ways to do it.
And if you don't have the latest version of Windows 11, certainly you can reach out to if you are a PCG customer. We've been doing quite a few Windows 11 upgrades lately in place from Windows 10 and getting those features. If it adds productivity to your workforce, that's going to be something that that's going to help out everybody. I think the next section, Dave is going to speak a little bit about the way Copilot's going to affect your business on the productivity side. So we've got 87% of organizations believe AI will give them a competitive edge. So like with a lot of technology things, it's the either get ahead or get left behind. So Dave, I don't know if you want to take over with this section.
I'm gonna let you do it, Patrick. I think it's time for you to shine right here. It's fantastic. But on the note, Patrick, just where you made that comment, the audience, just want to make sure you know Windows 10 is going away end of life. We're trying to let our clients know it's a perfect time on planning that. But October 25, Windows 10 will be no longer supported. So all of our clients, people on here, plan ahead, get ready for Windows 11. Make sure all your machines that are Windows 10 upgradable, get them done. And the ones that can't, plan that out, but that's a big part, especially within the chat, within the Copilot.
Hey, Patrick,
Yeah, Wendy.
before you move on or as you transition, I did post a poll. Just want to get a general rating of everybody on the other side of this webinar. Just if you can just rate your overall knowledge, we'd love to hear back from you, whether you're using it personally or professionally. Just like I'm a total newbie versus I consider myself a super user or somewhere in between. We'd love to see you rate that. Can you all see that on your end?
Sure can. Looks like we're
Okay.
giving ourselves a grade of a C so far. So I actually think that's higher than I thought, Wendy, based upon what's happening. It's been in the news a lot, but I think a lot of people haven't embraced it yet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Great.
so yeah, as you guys fill that out and Wendy gets some information from you, give you a little bit more information. A recent work trend index reports tell us that 64% of employees don't have enough time and energy to do their job. I know my boss would like me to say that, oh, he doesn't work me that hard, but I mean, we all feel the stress of it here and there. Then there's some people that are also, worried about AI performance taking away jobs, where I think historically that's not what we've seen with advances in technology. I know Dave may even be a little too young to have seen this, but it's back in the 70s and 80s as PCs became more popular and IBM released software that allowed spreadsheet work to be done by a computer. At that point, accountants were worried that it was going to put them out of a job, when after everybody got used to it, it actually increased the demand for accounting work because suddenly business owners said, oh, I can get all this information from them quickly. They're definitely worth it. I need to do more accounting work. I need to hire more accountants. So that's, AI is going to be one of those tools where you can delegate more of your workload, like Dave and Walker mentioned earlier, that it's the stuff that doesn't get you excited, not the stuff that you want to do with your day. Whether you work in sales and you want to spend more time talking to your customers on the phone, less time recapping emails, chasing down people for meetings. You'd rather have that human interaction. Whereas if you're in the accounting field, less time building and manipulating spreadsheets, and instead focus on the what those spreadsheets mean and how to provide that information to your clients, to your bosses, things like that. So we'll move through this pretty quickly, but if anybody has questions, certainly post them in the Q&A. We'll try to get to them all. But yeah, I'm sure we all feel the stress of not having enough hours in the day and not enough days in the week. So, Dave, what would you say PCG's goals for using AI are?
I think a lot of it is we're constantly trying to evaluate technology, and we as a business, we have to be aware of the product. It's here for our clients. It's here for us. It's here with the vendors that are dealing with us. So we need to be aware of it. We need to know how we can use it to benefit our business. I see it as a huge value to there's so many meetings that we run, the ability to help with our meetings, the ability to, in the world of IT, I can't tell you how much data we look at every day, the ability to consolidate that. As everyone knows, I like things quick and easy and right to the point. So I see AI helping me a lot because my attention to try to look through something for 15, 20 minutes, as Walker said earlier, having that quick result of the bullets that I need to know is very helpful. So we're embracing it. Again, we're in the early stages of this, and we're excited to see where it can take us.
Yeah, I know in the technical side, ever since the Copilot has been introduced to Windows, and even before that, ChatGPT things, we all of us on the tech team have been using it to get to solutions for our customers faster, because again, with the productivity levels, we're acutely aware of that. As any professional services industry, certain things, we bill out by the hour, and if we can do things quicker, it gives us a competitive edge over our competitors, and we want to keep our customers to ourselves, and help them thrive with us. So that's where I use it. I'm sure Walker's use is probably similar to Dave's, taking away the monotony of his day. But yeah, identifying the pain points and seeing if which users could really use it the most in your organization is going to be key to introducing it.
One thing, Patrick, I know I'm looking forward to or finding out is in the world of communications, the things that come to me, whether it is a Teams chat, it is a message chat, it is something through Facebook, it is an email. I think I average 300 to 400 emails a day. It's too much for all this information coming at me for it to kind of sift through the Dave. These really 10 emails. So I'm hoping I'm going to find it to help me, allow me to see the data that I need to see.
To answer Richard's question in the chat, he's asking, does any information leave the USA? Well, like Walker touched on earlier, it's all session based. So if yes, technically the data can leave the USA if your corporate policies are such that you're able to access your information outside of the US. So it follows all along with the DLP policies that you have in place for data protection within your organization within 365, but then everything is still session based.
Right. And there are some exceptions to that if you're a GCC client or GCC high. So anybody who's working in government community cloud or AOSG, those are all going to be partitioned to only stay within the United States, regardless of whatever settings or policies you have at the tenant level. Two things to mention on here, just quickly, data strategy. We talked about that. That's important. So do we have everything in an indexable and searchable format? Is it going to be effective with Copilot? And then necessary infrastructure and resources. This is really going to be on the licensing side of the house, right? So are we willing to make the investment in the right license packages? So think modern workplace SKUs in order to support a healthy and proactive corporate data governance architecture, something that follows, CIS or one of the similar frameworks, right?
Yeah, and it's identifying your team members, seeing, maybe it's during the next hiring cycle, if you've got one team member that you think is overworked, maybe it's something where you apply the license to them, or ask your IT group to apply a license to their user, have them see if it lightens their workload enough so that maybe it's you don't have to hire a second executive assistant, or you don't have to hire a third staff accountant or something like that. If you can make your current team more productive, they hopefully it makes their work-life balance a little bit better, and keeps them doing the stuff that they want.
Yeah, 100%. And what we saw in in early adoptions of this, so it went GA for enterprise agreement clients first, and then it hit the market. About a 30% increase in efficiency is what we're seeing across users that have the Copilot product. So, just start asking your question, like, what would you do with 30% more time back in your day? To the point about work-life balance, it should make things easier for everybody involved. And this, I was gonna say, we talked about this real quick already, but we can kind of blast through a couple of these slides. But it's important to know that it protects your data. It's a powerful model that it's built on, and it's transparent and current about where it's pulling that information from and giving it back to you.
And Walker, I want to just touch on the part that says no additional cost for Entra ID users. That's for the Copilot free,
Yes.
which you refer to as Copilot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, it's one of those things. It's already there. If it's not available to you, certainly reach out to your team and see if it can be made available to you and start using it. The more you use it, the more you'll see, oh, if only this had access to my OneDrive data, my SharePoint sites, my Outlook, that I could get so much more done. But even the free version, we use it all the time.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so here's a couple things to just get you thinking about how you might actually apply this. Summarize a long PDF, draft email, social content, generate images. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. I use the example of like a VLOOKUP formula in Excel. It's something I use quite a bit, but for whatever reason, I always forget to lock the table arrays. Although I've talked about it so many times in the context of Copilot, now I probably will remember next time I do it. But if you wanted to learn how to use a VLOOKUP formula effectively and also get a breakdown of what the individual components are, Copilot has this education enablement aspect built into it. So you can ask follow-up questions like, why is it set up that way? Why isn't this working? What does this, that, and the other thing mean, right? And you can get answers for specific and complex questions. And a good example there would be, we use the Copilot product to kind of do fact finding. So maybe I want to ask a very specific scenario, like I have somebody on an enterprise agreement, I'm looking to move them to CSP, but I'm trying to understand if there's an ability for them to get out of that enterprise agreement before end of term. I could ask that question to Copilot. It's going to give me really accurate information back very quickly. All right, so here's, sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the difference between Copilot free and Copilot for Microsoft 365, and the basic features are going to do a lot for a lot of people, but the Copilot for Microsoft 365 giving you access to interact with more of your 365 environment, whether that be doing things with your Excel data that you have already in your SharePoint or OneDrive, or if it's exploring newer 365 products that maybe you're less familiar with. There's amazing things you can do with programs like Power Automate and Power, say for instance, Power BI and the Microsoft Planner app that are typically underutilized by small to medium-sized businesses. But if you've got Copilot there to teach you how to do things in it, you can really transform the way you see your business data.
And just to note there, that is a monthly fee. So Copilot, the year is $360, which basically equates to $30 per month for that user.
Yeah, and another way to think about that is, if your average pay is $30 an hour, this product has to save you at least 12 hours over a 1-year period in order for it to meet and exceed its value proposition. So that's typically the way that I think about it. Like as we're going through these examples and tying it back to real world, use cases, do we think we can find 12 hours over the course of 1 year in order to justify the cost of the Copilot product? And the answer for us has been yes, but something to think about for y'all as you're going through this. Like, oh, well, that would have taken me 30 minutes. Now it takes me 5. So you just stack that a couple of times. It's pretty easy to find an hour in a week, and certainly within a month, 12 over the course of the year. That's the idea.
Well, Walker, one thing in the world of here in the Seacoast and professional services, and we as billable, whether you're a CPA, financial, your billable utilization is key. So as you can find ways to be more improving, you're allowing your business to be more effective.
100%. All right, so here, Zero Trust Foundations, that's just the principle of Zero Trust. So minimal access, simplified endpoint management, then Microsoft 365, productivity and collaboration. These are all the tools that are kind of underneath those subsets. And you'll notice that not all of them are included with all the packages. So the quick takeaway here, again, from my side, is to understand the right license package for the people that are using it. So everybody on the call here today, you want to have something that includes some version or combination of all of these services. And this is all in the context of Copilot. So again, there's really 3 SKUs that we call the hero SKUs, which is Business Premium, M365 E3, and M365 E5, because they include all of these. All right. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about management of content. So it's important to understand this is a really nice graphic to kind of give you this idea of what Copilot's doing. So semantic indexing is a term that Microsoft uses to hold all of the data and documents and files in a state of constant readiness, sort of like random access memory in the context of a computer. If anybody's heard that term RAM before. And this is just to kind of underscore the fact that Microsoft Copilot is able to plug into these different aspects of your business. And so having everything in a format that is going to be easily understandable and accessible to you is going to further increase the productivity of the productivity gains of utilizing Microsoft 365 Copilot. Also important to make sure that you have the data protection in place. The example here would be if you had a very traditional, what I would say, landscape of technology at a company, which is departments have SharePoint sites, and you have like HR, you have sales, and then C staff has access to everything, right? Fairly common. I know that's boiling it down to a very basic level. If you were to just throw Copilot into the mix without doing any of this stuff that we talked about, you have a potential not for Copilot to create security vulnerabilities, but to accentuate or bring to the surface existing security vulnerabilities. If I keep with that same example, you could give somebody in sales a Copilot license. And if we didn't have security groups and sensitivity labels and policies on the documents, they would have theoretically access to the other SharePoint sites within the organization. So what could happen is somebody could compromise that sales user's credentials. They could click on a fake landing page, sign in, provide their username and password. They don't have, let's say, multi-factor authentication in place. So now a bad actor has access to this set of credentials for a sales user within an organization. They get into Copilot and they ask it to pull payroll information or client lists. Those are stored at separate SharePoint sites, but if we don't have data protection in play to limit the access of that individual's account, in theory, we could pull that information out and it could leave the tenant itself. And so that's why we focus so much on understanding, how do we lock this down before we set it loose?
So we've talked quite a bit about how Copilot for Microsoft 365 interacts, especially around the security policies, compliance, and all of that. We want to give you a couple examples here in these slides here. So talks a little bit more about working with running in your business, taking the menial tasks or the monotonous tasks away from you, or taking the mental strength that it takes to do those, freeing that up, helping you do what matters more. But as you do this, prompt building is becoming a new. You may have seen it as a skill listed on somebody's LinkedIn. They may have recently added it. It's a big thing to be effective with all AI tools, but especially Copilot. Being specific, giving it as much detail as you can while keeping it brief, and then making sure that you're telling it exactly how you want the data output to you, whether you want that formatted for Excel, for Word, in an email, things like that. Mark, do you have any suggestions on either tips for people building prompts or places for people to learn how to make better prompts?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, again, kind of keeping in line with this concept of Copilot as an executive AI assistant, talk to it conversationally like you would a colleague or a coworker, somebody within your organization that you're delegating a task to. And so as specific as you would be with a person, be as specific as possible with the Copilot product. It's going to give you the best information back. So these are just some examples here on the left. An effective prompt, it's got full sentences with instructions, preferred format, output. A bad prompt would be something that's more vague. So, the examples here: recap an article and include the top 3 concerns, provide the answer 2-3 paragraphs, use a business tone. That's a great prompt. You're going to get exactly what you're looking for. Bad prompt would be recap article. It doesn't tell, you don't tell it exactly what you're looking to get back out of it. So it's going to take a guess. And that guess is probably going to be good information, but maybe not specific to what you're looking for. Now, don't worry too much about coming in perfectly with your prompts right away, because there is the ability, like we mentioned, to ask follow-up questions on the responses. Maybe you want it to redraft, cite different sources, give me a different tone. And so you can continue to workshop your results. And again, it takes much less time than going back and scrapping the whole thing and starting from square one.
It's also worth noting that the Copilot features within, say, Word or Excel or um, in your web chat, a lot of the times after initial prompt, it will have generative suggested prompts too that are quite effective, because it's already ingested the data you're asking it to look at, so it knows that, oh, these are other topics within that you might want to look at. So we'll go through some of those when we do some live demos here in a little bit.
Patrick, I just want to jump in. I'm going to launch one more poll just asking how often folks are using AI out there. So I'm going to launch that now. If you guys could respond, that'd be great.
Awesome. All right. So how to chat. And again, we could probably dive into this kind of on a one-on-one, but you put your prompt in, it's going to show your sources, you can check those and then ask follow-up questions. So very basic high-level examples of how you would interface with the Copilot product. And then on this next slide, we've got a couple of examples of like when to chat. So start thinking about when you might actually start to feed in the Copilot interface and start using that in your day-to-day operations. So maybe you need summaries, you need emails generated, you want images created, explain something, or how come, why is it like this? Again, use the example of the VLOOKUP formula. That's a great, but obviously you can apply it to multiple other things that you might be encountering on a day-to-day basis, or comparisons are also really helpful. And so kind of anecdotally, we use the example, and we can continue moving through the slides here, but maybe you wanted to compare fleet vehicle purchases. You're trying to go out and buy, X number of trucks, let's say 50 trucks for your company, and you can't decide between Ford and Chevrolet. You want the pros and cons of each. Copilot will actually give you some really actionable and valuable insights there in that example, and you could apply that for other things, of course. Checking your sources, you'll see it at the bottom here, so you can click into it. And that's why, Microsoft gives you kind of that ability to do it, because it's not a replacement for a person. It's supposed to be an augmentation. And therefore, Microsoft is going to take some educated guesses at what sorts of sources you might like to see, but it's also going to learn what you prefer. So for example, I always interface with Microsoft KB articles and Learn articles. And so Microsoft Copilot for me has learned that those are the ones that I want at the top. And it's going to return those more often than third parties. So there's an element of like it understands as you continue to interface with the product, at least not from the content that you're feeding into it, again, because it has data governance and data security, but the way that you're interfacing with the Copilot product, it's going to learn with you. It's embedded across all of the applications. So we talked a little bit about this, but it's going to follow you across the different things that you use in your day-to-day operations. You'll notice if you have the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license that you will have the Copilot ribbon within these applications. So that's to launch the interface with Copilot.
All right, I think we've got a couple videos here to show you some examples. So we'll jump right into the Copilot for in Teams meetings. So let me make sure that I'm Walker, with that one, I'm sure because we're going to get asked, you know, not everybody has to have the Copilot license to make that feature available, correct? If you wanted to use that feature, you would be the only one that needs the Copilot license in order to provide those summaries to your team of meetings and things like that.
Yeah, the correct way to think about this here is the person who's trying to affect something like this, the functionality needs to have the license. So in this case, we saw somebody try to use a real-time recap. They would have to have a Copilot license. If the meeting hoster has a Copilot license, they can recap it after the fact and disseminate that to the team, right? So it's not an all or nothing sort of thing. Correct.
So we're going to jump into an Outlook example here.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can see right there, I mean, the idea here is that there are only so many hours in the day, and people like Dave and myself and Patrick that are on sales calls and on meetings that are running kind of all over the place, we might have to make hard decisions and prioritize one over the other, but maybe we still want to keep a beat on the pulse of what's going on in those conversations. It's a great way to do that. One of the things that they didn't even show you here, and I think we're going to run out of time today, but it may have to go to the next session, but you can also use it for multiple other things. Maybe you want to see recaps of certain subject matters that were discussed across email. You want to pull those to the top of your list. You want to see who was emailing you the most, or the last 10 emails that I received, and what were the key takeaways or action items from each of those from myself. You can get very specific with it. Again, using good prompts is going to enhance the functionality of Copilot. So as you're thinking about using the product and applying it to your business, think about the prompts that you might start to draft up. And you can always do a little bit of market development and testing with the free version before you actually jump in and buy the paid one. And the other thing that I would say, if anybody's on today's meeting but won't be able to join the next one, think about the high priority people within your organization that are going to get the most use out of this product. And maybe start there. Maybe you don't buy it for the whole company in one go. And this is one of the pitfalls that I've seen with Copilot is if people treat it like a glorified search engine, it's going to end up being a glorified search engine. And so that's part of the reason that we wanted to put together this webinar so you could understand a little bit more about the use cases, how to interface with it, and where the value proposition and the kind of the efficiency play comes from. So hopefully these are helping to.
I couldn't concur more about having a champion. So within your organization, find the 2 or 3 people that you think can embrace and help you lead that charge. Like from my side, Patrick's one of them, of really finding how it can best come to play and then allow it to help me. So it's difficult as we are here in management to do everything, but find some people in your organization that you can put on to this task, start using it, and then you as an organization can embrace it.
Yeah, and I'll follow this up because I know we're not going to get to all of the demos today. But Wendy and myself will be working to put together some videos on some real use cases that we're going to be using here within PCG, and getting that out on our socials, so YouTube, LinkedIn. Where else will they be able to find that content, Wendy?
Besides LinkedIn and Facebook, we can also follow up to these with some links to that content as well. I would also just remind everybody that we are going to do a part 2 on June 19th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So feel free to look for that as well, and everybody will get a recording. I know we're going over right now, but I think we should just open it up just in case there are any questions that didn't get asked in chat. But yeah, we're excited to have a follow-up to this for sure.
Yeah, while we're waiting for some of those questions to come in, I want to give you guys kind of a live demo of it working in Excel. I've got some sample data here, and just to show how quickly it can generate some content for you for your business meeting. So I've got the source data that this comes with, some projects, the types of projects, budgets, revenue, profits. So Copilot with Excel works best with tables of data. So if I go ahead and I highlight this table, I can go ahead and I want to go ahead and get some insights and also add those insights with graphs to another sheet that I can then go and copy into a Word document. So if I hit, I've already given it a prompt of say, can you summarize the insights to one sentence per project type? And then it's also provided me with some graphs. And so I'm going to add all those insights to a grid on here. And that's adding it onto a new sheet in the Excel workbook. And we've got all sorts of bar graphs here, as well as some pivot tables that it's created for me to manipulate these. And I can, show Dave, hey, look how good we've been doing in our projects. I've been profitable on all these, but maybe I haven't been as profitable on design projects, for instance. And Dave's gonna be really impressed because I didn't have any of this before 10 minutes before our meeting, and suddenly I've got a whole bunch of graphs to show him that really I just need to get back to doing my work, and I don't need to spend half a day preparing slides for kind of a Q4 wrap up or something like that for him, and we can review it. We can talk about the challenges we've had, and we can move on without spending as much time just putting that information together. So we'll get back into
literally a matter of seconds versus, half hour, maybe 45 minutes to do that same level of work.
That's a great example of kind of like how you do it in your day-to-day stuff, Patrick, that and in today's world of timing, just how to take that 20, 30 minutes that you're able to do something in a few minutes prior to coming to a meeting.
And I'm not saying you should wait until 10 minutes before the meeting, but maybe when Dave sends me the meeting invite, I'll just prepare things right there. And then that way, when the meeting comes around the next day, I can say, oh, yeah, I have this right away. I sent it to you as soon as I put it together, and let's go over it now.
100%. And then the other thing you could do is have it generate like a Word document with all of the insights and maybe the graphs and data, or you could take the Excel workbook itself, and then you could attach it to the meeting invite. So now it's available for everybody to reference. So really cool as we start to kind of plug all the pieces together.
Towards the end here. So we've gone over it a bit already, but I mean, we're Dave and I are IT people. Our first concern is always going to be security, but we understand that it's not always the most fun topic. So knowing that this tool kind of meets existing compliance needs gives us the confidence to say, hey, let's focus on productivity for this, because as long as we've done the work ahead of time, which if you want to get into that conversation with us, we certainly can talk about Intune, MDM, data loss prevention, all of that. That's separate topic. That's something you should have whether or not you're using Copilot or not. But Walker, I don't know if you have any words to start to wrap things up here.
Well, I guess I would just say, come to the next session. Obviously, I'm sure we'll lose a couple of people, but the key takeaway here with the Copilot product is it's ready, and some of the other things that we've seen hit the marketplace haven't been fully baked. And so I'm always a little bit of a conservative implementer when it comes to new technology. This is one that I think is going to be revolutionizing the day-to-day operations of business in America and worldwide. And so I don't want to be so aggressive with it, but I think the bus is here And so we got to get on the bus or we can get run over by the bus, you know? So just understanding what it is, and maybe it doesn't have a use case for everybody. And I think that that's probably true. It's not a silver bullet, you know, but there are a lot of places and a lot of ways that you could start integrating generative AI into your day-to-day operations to drastically improve your quality of life and increase your efficiency to the point where you can start to focus on things that are more important to you. And that's really the way that I think about Copilot. It's not a replacement, it's an augmentation. And it's one of those
Walker,
things that, yeah.
on that note, a lot of my clients are always asking me, Dave, what's really the difference between why would I be using Copilot versus Chat GPT? We kind of know from the Microsoft, but from a high level, the one or two big takeaways you would say, you know, the good news is I'm glad that they're on something and they're embracing AI, but what would be your key takeaways on those two products?
So, okay, so the first thing would be data integration. And what I mean by that is ChatGPT is just an interface. It kind of exists as a box. Now you can take things, drag, drop it into it, reference it. But it doesn't integrate within your Microsoft 365 ecosystem. Now, most people in business are operating on the Microsoft suite of products and applications. And so having that deeper integration and that native integration across the Copilot products in your applications, I think is one of the biggest takeaways and one of the biggest key differentiators between the two. And then the other one would be data security and corporate data governance and the guardrails that Microsoft has put in place with their Copilot product. You know, I think about like AI is a little bit using AI is a little bit like bowling, you know, and you can knock over the pins and get what you're looking for, but as soon as you go off the rails, you might get a gutter ball, right? So when you're bowling with Copilot, the bumpers are up, and there's really no way that you can mess it up and get yourself into trouble. So that's I'd say those are the two things that I would say if I had to boil it down to two between the two products.
But kind of on the last slide, everyone, again, we know everyone's time is important, and this AI is a huge topic to cover in 1 hour, and sometimes it might be dry to people. But my biggest takeaway is, you know, embrace it. Find some people on your team that is ready to kind of help your company with it. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to PCG or also sales@pcgit.com. You know, start finding how AI can start helping you. Start thinking about leveraging it, and as Walker and Patrick been noting out, is the part of why it's important to us on the Copilot is the security side. And PCG is a big part of our business with our clients is always about security. And we feel much more positive about our clients using Copilot in their own ecosystems for many reasons to get the best value out of it. Anything else, Patrick or Walker, to wrap up?
I think we've covered a lot, and I'm excited to share more of my experience through our LinkedIn pages and things like that. And to those of you who are current customers of ours, we may also be able to start adding Copilot training in the future. That's a little ways off. We've got to get fully comfortable with it ourselves in terms of making sure that, hey, Copilot's great to ask it what to do, but if I want to make sure that I've got the full knowledge base with me before I say, yeah, you guys can ask me how to do anything with Copilot. We've got a lot of test cases to try out, but because the like Walker said, the guardrails are there for us. If you don't know if Copilot can do something, all you have to do is ask. You can ask us, you can ask Copilot, but yeah, try it out. Start to get comfortable with it, because hopefully it'll make all of our lives a lot easier.
One thing, Patrick, as we gain more, most of our clients aware of that, we have our new client portal called Hub 360. And as we find data, training, information, knowledge base, we'll be posting that in your personal Hub 360 portal. So if some of you aren't aware of that, Amy can help you with that. But Hub 360 is the portal where PCG has the ability to share all information of everything we do for you. And Patrick, any on the notes of how you'll see that tie together with Hub 360?
Yeah, we're gonna we're gonna set up training courses. We've already got some training courses in there for specific 365 apps, but it's going to be augmenting that, saying, hey, this might be how you use Copilot with this application. Give you some real world examples, and making sure that if you need the license for it, we're able to provide that.
Well, again, everyone's time, we thank you very much. Our upcoming session will be on Monday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. That'll be in the Microsoft 365 Premium platform. And as we're talking about how the Entra, the Azure, the management of the user, the permissions, and how it ties back. So a lot of people are on the basic and the standard, but premium is where businesses should be looking at. So we're doing a deep dive on that. And then we'll kind of do a repeat version of what we did today, but a little bit deeper dive on Wednesday, June 19th at 10 a.m. So Wendy will make sure anyone that our emails will be going out, and please pass along to other people if they want to learn a little bit more. Wendy, any closing
Thanks.
marks?
Thanks everybody for staying late. You'll get the recording as soon as it's published by the end of the day. And like Dave said, on June 19th, we'll have a little bit of a different spin, maybe more use cases, as well as some other mini videos that we didn't get to today. And you know, AI doesn't replace humans fully, not yet anyhow. That's one girl's opinion. So
We don't want
thanks
that.
everybody, and I think we're good to go. Thanks to all you guys for presenting.
And
Thanks
Walker,
for
thank you
having
very
me.
much for joining
Yeah.
us from the Mile City. Thank you very much. Everyone have
All
a
right.
fantastic day.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care, y'all.
Take
Bye.
care.